Major Alina Kovacs wiped blood from her ears as the XR-Gath neural disruptor waves pounded through the mining colony's reinforced walls. Outside, the sky above Proxima B9 filled with the chitinous silhouettes of invasion craft, their hulls reflecting the red dwarf's light in nauseating patterns. The 32 soldiers of her platoon, the last human military presence in the system, fought to stay conscious as the disruptor's frequencies intensified. "Status report," Alina demanded, her voice steady despite the jackhammer headache building behind her eyes. Lieutenant Santos gripped the tactical console, knuckles white. "All other outposts have gone silent. Neural compliance across the board. We're the only ones still fighting it." On the main view screen, feeds from sister colonies showed the grim truth. Humans kneeling in perfect rows, eyes vacant, neural pathways hijacked by XR-Gath technology. 3 months of systematic conquest had culminated in this moment. The XR-Gath Imperium had broken every human presence in the Proxima Centauri system except theirs. Major, Communications Officer Chen called. They're broadcasting the standard surrender protocol on all frequencies. The view screen flickered, revealing a XR-Gath commander. Its exoskeleton gleamed iridescent blue and black, compound eyes reflecting the light of multiple monitors. 6 segmented limbs moved in precise, unsettling synchronization as it manipulated controls out of frame. When it spoke, translation software rendered the clicks and chittering into flat, emotionless English. "Attention human resistance element. Your biological and technological distinctiveness will be incorporated into the XR-Gath Imperium. Neural compliance is inevitable. Further resistance causes unnecessary suffering. 74 species before you have accepted our dominance. You will be 75th. Surrender now." Alina felt the gaze of her soldiers. Their resistance to the neural disruptor was fragmenting. Several struggled to stay upright, nosebleeds starting as their brains fought the alien influence. In the adjacent mining hub, civilian workers were also fighting the effects. Their mining equipment clutched like weapons as they looked to the military garrison for leadership. "The disruptor's getting stronger," Santos warned. "Medical says we got maybe 10 minutes before neural collapse." Alina stepped forward, standing directly before the view screen. Blood trickled from her left ear, but her voice remained unwavering. "This is Major Alina Kovacs of the Earth Defense Force. I have a message for your command." The XR-Gath's mandibles clicked rapidly in what intelligence suggested was confusion. No species had ever engaged in dialogue during the surrender process. "Humans don't surrender Proxima B9, Alina said, each word clear and deliberate. "Come and take it." She terminated the transmission. The silence in the command center stretched for 3 heartbeats before Chief Mining Engineer Vasquez broke it with a barking laugh. "Hell yes." The burly man hefted a sonic drilling tool. "You heard the Major. They want our planet. They'll have to pry it from our cold, dead hands." The civilian miners roared in agreement, the sound spreading through the facility like wildfire. The sonic drills, plasma cutters, and industrial equipment suddenly transformed from tools into armaments. Alina turned to her stunned platoon. "Everyone thought we were just babysitting miners out here at the edge of human space. Today we prove we're more. Santos, deploy combat stims to counter the neural effects. Chen, get me all intelligence on XR-Gath biology. Ramirez, coordinate with Vasquez to convert this facility into a fortress." "Ma'am," Santos whispered, "that's an entire invasion fleet up there. Thousands of warriors, at minimum. We're 32 soldiers and 140 miners." Alina stared at the tactical display, watching as XR-Gath landing craft began atmospheric entry, their heat signatures flaring against the holographic representation of Proxima B9's thin atmosphere. "The XR-Gath have never fought humans in ground combat," she replied. "Their entire conquest model assumes neural compliance. We're about to become their worst nightmare." She pointed to the mining facility schematics. 4 levels, reinforced against stellar radiation, with choke points we can control. We make them pay for every meter. Around them, both soldiers and miners rushed to prepare. Fear was present in their movements, but something stronger pushed it aside. The uniquely human refusal to submit even against impossible odds. "They think they know what we are," Elena said, checking the charge on her sidearm. "Time to educate them." Outside, the first Targath landing craft touched down on the red soil of Proxima B9, disgorging warriors who had never known defeat across 74 conquered worlds. They advanced with the absolute confidence of inevitable victory. They were about to learn why humans were different. Science Overseer Khazar's multiple limbs worked in perfect coordination, manipulating the neural data streaming across the laboratory screens aboard the Targath flagship. His segmented exoskeleton clicked softly as he pivoted between workstations. Behind him, Lord Commander Vexnar's imposing form cast a shadow over the proceedings, the commander's ceremonial battle plates adding to his already intimidating stature. "Explain the failure," Vexnar demanded, mandibles clicking in irritation. "Why are these humans still resisting?" Tigzar's compound eyes reflected the scrolling neural patterns. "Fascinating anomalies, Commander. Most species evolve with neural pathways optimized for maximum cognitive efficiency and survival. Predictable patterns. Our disruptors exploit these universal constants." He gestured to a holographic representation of a human brain, chaotic with activity. Humans evolved differently. Their neural structure contains significant redundancy, chaotic pathways, and counterintuitive processing centers. It appears their brains evolved under conditions of continuous threat and social complexity beyond anything we've encountered. Another scientist approached with data tablets. Early results from other subjugated humans show 97% neural compliance, but a complete inability to disable this resistance pocket. The humans at the mining facility demonstrate higher resilience to our technology. Vexinar's upper limbs tightened around his command staff. "You claim these primitives can resist technologies that have conquered beings far more advanced." "Not resist completely," Tigzar clarified. "But their unusual neural architecture creates gaps in our control. The disruption still causes pain, disorientation, but not complete submission." The command chamber's doors parted, admitting strategy master Durivax, whose battle-scarred exoskeleton marked him as a veteran of dozens of conquest campaigns. "I've analyzed their combat records," Durivax reported, his voice a low hiss through mandibles damaged in ancient battles. "Most concerning. Unlike other species who surrender when defeat is mathematically certain, humans historically fight hardest when victory seems impossible." He activated a tactical display showing famous last stands from human military history. 300 humans against 1,000,000 Persians at Thermopylae. A handful of Texans against a Mexican army at the Alamo. The Warsaw Uprising. Stalingrad. Mars Colony Rebellion. Their cultural mythology celebrates those who die fighting rather than submit. Vexinar's antennae twitched with agitation. "This defies reason. The purpose of combat is survival." "Not for humans," Durivax countered. "For humans, the purpose of combat appears to be victory or meaningful death. They possess a psychological trait we've never encountered. They would rather die on their feet than live on their knees." Tigzar manipulated more data streams. "There's more. Under conditions of extreme stress, where other species experience cognitive collapse, human neural patterns actually become more focused. Their redundant pathways activate, creating new decision frameworks. It's as if they evolved specifically to function in crisis." Vexinar paced the chamber, his steps heavy with the weight of his armor. "Imperium protocols are clear. Non-compliant species face immediate orbital bombardment. We cannot allow resistance to inspire others." The gathered Xargath military leaders clicked their agreement. 74 conquered species had taught them that mercy bred rebellion. Only overwhelming force established proper dominance. Yet Tigzar moved to block Vexinar's path. "Commander, with respect, this represents an unprecedented opportunity. If we can capture live specimens and study this neural anomaly, We could develop more effective subjugation technology. The Imperium overlords would reward such an advancement. Vexenar considered, his compound eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the mining facility. How many warriors would you recommend for capture operations? 2,000 should be sufficient, Strategy Master Urivax replied. Even with their neural resistance, they are merely 32 soldiers and untrained civilians with mining equipment. Their resistance will collapse once they face real XR-Gath warriors. Tixar's manipulators worked excitedly. We'll prepare neural dampening chambers to preserve the specimens. Their unusual brain structure could revolutionize our conquest technologies. Vexenar raised a limb, silencing further discussion. Deploy the first wave. I want the humans captured alive for study. Urivax, you will personally command the ground forces. The Strategy Master's damaged mandibles clicked in acknowledgement. Science Overseer, Vexenar continued, prepare your research protocols. When the humans are captured, I want immediate analysis of their neural resistance. As the War Council dispersed, Tixar remained before his data screens, compound eyes reflecting the chaotic patterns of human brain activity. Something about these readings disturbed him on a level beyond scientific curiosity. In 74 conquered species, the XR-Gath had never encountered minds that became more ordered under threat, not less. In the deployment bay, Strategy Master Urivax addressed his warriors as they boarded landing craft. These humans believe they can resist the inevitable. By day's end, they will kneel like all others before them. The Imperium conquers all. 2,000 Sargath warriors chittered their battle cry in response, the sound reverberating through the massive ship. They had conquered advanced civilizations across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. A handful of primitive humans on a mining colony would be barely worth mentioning in their combat records. As the landing craft launched toward the surface of Proxima B9, none of the XR-Gath recognized the fatal mistake they were making. They were about to fight an enemy who had evolved specifically to do the impossible. Delina surveyed the makeshift command center they'd established in the mining facility's deep core processing room. The neural disruptors continued pulsing from orbit, but combat stims and adaptive earplugs designed by the medical officer had reduced their effectiveness. Every soldier and miner now moved with purpose, transforming the industrial complex into a death trap. They're deploying ground forces, Lieutenant Santos reported, monitoring the perimeter sensors. Preliminary count shows approximately 2,000 warriors. Landing pattern indicates a standard encirclement procedure. Delina nodded, studying the 3D holographic display of the facility. 4 main levels, connected by industrial lifts and emergency stairwells. Thick walls designed to withstand Proxima Centauri's radiation flares. Narrow corridors that would negate the invaders' numerical advantage. What do we know about Kargath biology? She asked. Dr. Reeves, the colony's exobiologist, pulled up his findings. Intelligence from other conquered systems indicates they're arthropod-derived. Exoskeletons rather than endoskeletons. Chitin-based armor that's resistant to conventional projectiles, but potentially vulnerable to percussion and vibration. Their communication relies heavily on pheromones and antenna sensitivity. Alina's eyes narrowed. Percussion damage and pheromone disruption. Vasquez, what mining equipment do we have that operates on sonic principles? The chief mining engineer grinned. Sonic drilling equipment for the hardest mineral deposits. Industrial-grade resonance tools that can shatter rock with specific vibration frequencies. And industrial chemicals. Warehouse full of them, including some particularly nasty compounds we use for breaking down mineral impurities. Alina smiled for the first time since the invasion began. Here's the plan. We convert the sonic drilling equipment into weapons. Find the resonance frequency that affects their exoskeletons. We use the industrial chemicals to mask our scents and disrupt their pheromonal communications. She pointed to the facility map. We fight on our terms. Narrow corridors. Ambushes. Hit and fade. Make them come to us, where their numbers work against them. The miners, despite their lack of military training, caught on quickly. Within hours, they had modified sonic drills into handheld weapons. Others created improvised explosive devices from mining charges. The industrial chemists developed an aerosol spray that would overwhelm Thargath sensory organs. First contact in 5 minutes, Santos warned. They're breaching the outer doors. Alina addressed the assembled defenders. Remember, they've never fought humans in ground combat. Every other species surrenders to their neural technology. We're about to change their understanding of warfare. The sounds of the outer doors being breached echoed through the facility. Alina activated her tactical comm. All units, implement Hornet's Nest protocol. The first wave of Exargath warriors moved with the confidence of conquerors who had never known defeat. Their chitinous bodies gleamed under the emergency lighting as they advanced through the main entrance. Strategy Master Yurivax led from the center, his damaged mandibles clicking orders to subordinates. They encountered no resistance in the first 100 meters. No humans appeared to challenge them. Yurivax's antennae twitched with suspicion. "Forward units, status report," he commanded. Silence answered him. The warriors who had pushed ahead were no longer responding. Yurivax signaled for the formation to advance cautiously toward the main processing area. As they rounded the corner, they found the missing warriors, or what remained of them. A dozen Targath bodies lay shattered on the floor, their exoskeletons cracked and broken in ways Yurivax had never witnessed. No blood, no projectile wounds, just catastrophic structural failure of their protective armor. Before he could process this anomaly, the ambush was sprung. Hidden vents in the walls released a chemical fog that immediately overwhelmed their sensory organs. That Exargath warriors' antenna went into spasm, their pheromonal communication network collapsing into chaos. Then came the sound, a directional sonic assault that resonated at precisely the frequency to stress exoskeletal plates. Warriors fell screaming as their armor began to crack. From hidden positions, humans emerged wielding modified mining equipment. The sonic drills operated at point-blank range caused instant death as Targath exoskeletons shattered. Others deployed shaped mining charges that funneled their explosive force with devastating precision. Yurivax fought through the sensory overload to issue retreat orders, but the narrow corridors had become killing zones. Humans appeared and disappeared through maintenance hatches, striking from unexpected angles. The 2,000 warriors, trained for conventional combat against opponents who fought with predictable tactics, found themselves in a nightmare of asymmetric warfare. By the time Yurivax managed to extract his remaining forces from the facility, over 400 warriors lay dead. The Exargath had inflicted only 7 human casualties in return. Back aboard the flagship, Lord Commander Vexnar received the report with mandibles clicking in fury. "Impossible," he hissed. 400 elite warriors dead. To primitive miners. Yurivax, his exoskeleton cracked in 3 places, lowered his gaze. "They fight like nothing we have encountered, Commander. They converted their industrial equipment into weapons precisely calibrated to exploit our biological weaknesses. They know our vulnerabilities and have adapted their entire facility to maximize their advantage." Science Overseer Khazar's analysis added to the humiliation. "They improvised their tactics and weapons in mere hours. Our records show no species has ever inflicted casualties at this ratio during initial contact." Lord Commander Vexnar's rage was cold and precise. "The humans have refused our mercy. Now they will experience the full might of the Targath Imperium." In the mining facility, Alina took stock of their victories and losses. 7 dead, each one a person with a name, a history, people who would mourn them. But they had bloodied the invaders and shattered their aura of invincibility. "They'll be back," she told her people. "And next time, they won't underestimate us." A miner raised a modified sonic drill. "Let them come. We'll be ready." Alina nodded, knowing what none of them would say aloud. This was just the beginning, and survival remained mathematically impossible. But humans had never concerned themselves much with mathematical impossibilities. Elena sat alone in the small maintenance alcove she claimed as private quarters, holding a worn photograph in scarred hands. The image showed an elderly couple standing before the twisted metal ruins of what had once been the new Vladivostok geothermal facility on Mars. Her grandparents, survivors of the siege that had become legend during the colonial wars. 300 civilians, her grandmother had told her. 87 days against corporate mercenaries with orbital support. They thought we would break in hours. A soft knock interrupted her memories. Lieutenant Santos entered, his face haggard from 36 hours without proper sleep. The XR-GAF have withdrawn to high orbit, he reported. Our perimeter sensors show no ground activity. They're regrouping, Elena said, tucking the photograph away. Analyzing their failure, adapting their approach. Santos nodded. The miners have completed the modifications to levels 2 and 3. Sonic traps, chemical dispersal systems, and the resonance emitters are all in place. Elena stood, stretching muscles sore from combat. And the civilians. Chief Vasquez has them working in shifts. Half rest while half work. Morale is... Santos paused, searching for the right word. Defiant. They're scared, but there's something stronger pushing back against the fear. Hope. Elena suggested. Santos shook his head. No, ma'am. None of them believe we're getting out of this alive. It's something else, like they found purpose in the resistance itself. Elena understood. She'd seen it in her grandparents' eyes when they spoke of the siege. The peculiar clarity that came with accepting death but refusing defeat. My grandfather called it the gift of desperation. She said, when there's no way out, humans stop wasting energy on fear and focus it all on defiance. Aboard the XR-GAF flagship, Science Overseer Kivzar presented his findings to the War Council. The chamber's atmosphere was tense, the assembled military leaders still processing their unprecedented defeat. I have completed my analysis of human historical combat data. Kivzar began, his manipulator limbs activating the holographic display. The results are disturbing. The display showed graphical representations of neural responses across various species during combat. All previously encountered species show predictable patterns. As defeat becomes more probable, neural activity becomes increasingly erratic. Decision-making deteriorates. Surrender becomes the logical endpoint of this cognitive decline. He highlighted the human pattern, which diverged dramatically from the others. Humans display the opposite response. As their situation becomes more desperate, their neural patterns become more focused, not less. What's more, their social cohesion actually strengthens under extreme threat. Lord Commander Vexnar leaned forward. Explain the evolutionary advantage of such a trait. I believe it stems from their unusual development as apex predators who remained prey, Kivzar replied. Most dominant species evolve either overwhelming physical advantages or hive-mind coordination. Humans evolved neither. They were physically weaker than many competitors but developed as pack hunters with individual consciousness. Strategy master Urivax, his damaged exoskeleton now repaired, interjected. This explains their tactical adaptability. Each human acts independently while maintaining group cohesion. Precisely, Kivzar continued. And there's more. Their historical records show a pattern we've never encountered. The more hopeless their situation, the more ferociously they fight. He displayed footage from human conflicts spanning centuries, small forces holding against overwhelming odds. Last stands that should have been surrenders. They call it backs against the wall psychology. When escape is impossible, they commit fully to resistance. Their historical archives are filled with examples of small groups inflicting disproportionate casualties when all logical analysis indicates they should surrender. Lord Commander Vexnar's mandibles clicked in agitation. The Imperium has conquered 74 species across 3 spiral arms. We will not be deterred by a mining colony of primitives. With respect, Commander, Kivzar countered, no species has ever inflicted first-contact casualties approaching what this small human outpost has managed. Their neural resistance to our subjugation technology, combined with this psychological trait, makes them uniquely dangerous. The War Council fell silent, processing implications that challenged the very foundation of their conquest methodology. The Imperium overlords demand results. Vexnar finally said, "Prepare a full-scale assault. 10,000 warriors, heavy weapons platforms, aerial support. We will crush this resistance with overwhelming force." As the council dispersed, Tezar returned to his laboratory. On his primary screen, he replayed footage of Major Alina Kovacs during the first contact. Despite blood streaming from her ears from the neural disruptor, her eyes showed something the scientist had never observed in 74 conquered species, not just resistance, but a clarity that seemed to sharpen rather than diminish under attack. His research assistant approached. "Overseer, I've completed the neural mapping you requested." The display showed a comparison between Alina's neural patterns and those of humans from previously conquered colonies. "As you suspected," the assistant continued, "the mining colony commander shows significantly higher resistance factors. Her neural architecture contains unusual redundancy in decision-making pathways." "Heritage?" Tezor inquired. "Records indicate her genetic lineage traces to survivors of the Mars Colonial War, specifically the Siege of New Vladivostok, where 300 civilians held out for 87 days against corporate forces." Tezar's compound eyes focused on Alina's image. "They're selecting for it," he realized. "Each human conflict selects for those with the strongest resistance psychology. Each generation of survivors passes this trait forward." For the first time in his long scientific career, Tezar felt something approaching fear. The XR Gath had conquered through biological inevitability, the certainty that rational beings surrender when defeat is assured. But humans appeared to operate outside this fundamental principle. Their defeat seemed to trigger not surrender but an almost predatory focus. "Prepare the data for transmission to the Imperium overlords," he instructed. "Flag it as strategic priority. Classification: Omega-level threat species." In the display, Alina Kovacs' determined eyes stared back at him, reflecting a will that evolution had forged specifically to refuse surrender. The 3-day respite ended with the screaming of atmosphere being torn apart. Alina raced to the command center as the facility shook from proximity detonations. "Status," she demanded, bracing against a bulkhead as another tremor rocked the structure. Santos gestured to the tactical display. "Massive deployment. We're counting at least 10,000 warriors, heavy weapons platforms, aerial support units. They're bringing everything. Major." Through external cameras, Alina watched Xargath landing craft disgorge wave after wave of warriors. Their chitinous armor now bore additional reinforcement panels, adaptations to the sonic weapons that had proved so effective in the first engagement. "They've evolved their approach," Alina noted. "Their exoskeletons have been modified to resist sonic attacks." Dr. Reeves, the exobiologist, nodded grimly. "They're highly adaptable. But those reinforcements will increase weight and reduce mobility." Alina turned to Chief Vasquez. "Time to implement Phase 2. Activate the electromagnetic disruptors." Vasquez grinned. "With pleasure, Major." During the 3-day lull, the miners had exploited Proxima B9's unique mineral composition to create crude but effective electromagnetic disruptors. The devices would interfere with Xargath targeting systems while leaving human analog equipment functional. As the first wave of Xargath forces approached the facility perimeter, Vasquez activated the system. Immediately, the invaders' coordinated advance faltered. Their communications gear emitted painful feedback screeches, and targeting systems displayed ghost readings. "The disruptors are working," Santos reported. "Their formations are breaking down." Alina nodded. "Deploy defense teams according to Protocol Artemis. Remember, we don't just defend. We direct their movement patterns." The Xargath assault began with overwhelming force against the main entrance. They no longer advanced with the arrogant confidence of conquerors, but moved with cautious precision born from their previous defeat. The reinforced warriors at the front carried massive shield panels designed to absorb sonic attacks. What they encountered instead were electromagnetically charged barriers that interfered with their neural networks. Behind these, human defenders had positioned themselves with weapons specifically calibrated to exploit gaps in the new XR-GAF armor. The humans didn't attempt to hold the outer perimeter. Instead, they executed a fighting retreat, leaving behind traps and false defensive positions. Each backward step was calculated to draw the XR-GAF deeper into the facility's modified layout. Strategy Master Yurivax, commanding from a mobile platform, recognized the trap too late. "They're channeling our forces. Halt the advance." His orders came too late. The XR-GAF vanguard had already penetrated to the second level, where the main ambush was waiting. Explosive charges detonated in precisely calculated sequences, not to kill but to separate XR-GAF units from each other. Chemical dispersal systems activated, filling corridors with compounds specifically designed to overwhelm XR-GAF sensory organs. And then came the human's most psychological weapon: sound. They broadcast the agonized clicks and chittering of injured XR-GAF warriors through the facility's communication system. The sounds, recorded from the first battle, created chaos in the invaders' pheromone-based battle coordination. Warriors who evolved in hive mind societies experienced something they had no evolutionary defense against: confusion about which distress signals were real and which were recordings. From fortified positions, the human defenders struck with devastating precision. Miners who weeks earlier had been peacefully extracting minerals now executed combat maneuvers with machine-like efficiency. Soldiers who had expected to serve out quiet deployments guarding an unimportant outpost fought with the ferocity of elite special forces. The battle for Proxima B9 became a room-by-room nightmare for the XR-GAF. Every meter gained cost them dozens of warriors. Environmental systems they had no experience with became weapons in human hands. Mining equipment repurposed into anti-armor weapons tore through their ranks. Aboard the flagship, Lord Commander Vexnar watched in mounting fury as casualty reports flooded in. 1,000 warriors lost in the first hour, reported the communications officer. The humans are using our own dead against us, broadcasting their death sounds to confuse our formations. Science Overseer Khazar's analysis only deepened the commander's rage. They've adapted their tactics with remarkable speed. Each of our countermeasures has been anticipated and exploited. They're displaying pattern recognition abilities that exceed our predictive models. I want that facility destroyed. Vexnar rage. Commence orbital bombardment. Khazar moved to block the commander's path to the weapons controls. The Imperium overlords have forbidden orbital strikes. They want the human neural anomaly preserved for study. Vexnar's upper limbs twitched with barely restrained violence. Then send in everything. Every warrior, every weapon. I want those humans broken. The assault intensified. Wave after wave of XR-GAF warriors threw themselves against the human defenses. For every meter gained, they paid in blood. By the end of the first day, the invaders had secured only the outermost sections of the facility at the cost of nearly 3,000 dead. In the command center, Alina received the grim toll of their own losses. 23 soldiers dead, 42 miners, each name a person she had come to know, each death strengthening the resolve of the survivors. "They're adapting faster than we anticipated," she told her officers. "Their new formations are countering our traps more effectively." Santos studied the tactical display. "We can hold level 3 for maybe another day. After that." Elena nodded. "Then we make that day count. Initiate contingency plans for level 2 abandonment. Prepare for fallback to the central processing facility." As her officers dispersed to relay orders, Alina found a moment alone with the colony's civilian administrator, Dr. Harris. "The miners are fighting like veterans," she said quietly. "I never expected." Harris shook his head. "You military types never do. These aren't just miners, Elena. They're frontier colonists. People who chose to leave safe, comfortable lives to build something at the edge of human space. They've all got that same stubborn core, that refusal to be told what they can't do. Elena considered this as another tremor shook the facility. The administrator was right. These weren't conscripts or even regular soldiers. They were humans who had chosen the hardest path available. People who had already refused the easy surrender to comfort and safety. Against such opponents, the XR-Gath mathematical models of rational behavior were worse than useless. They were fighting humans who had defined themselves by rejecting the rational choice. "Get some rest, Doctor," she said. "Tomorrow will be worse." Outside, the XR-Gath assault continued through the night, warriors dying by the hundreds against defenses designed by people who had accepted their own deaths but refused to make them meaningless. 7 days into the assault, the mining facility had become a slaughterhouse. The defenders had been pushed back to the central processing facility, abandoning the outer levels one by one in carefully orchestrated withdrawals that extracted maximum casualties from the invaders. The toll was staggering. Over 6,000 Sargath warriors dead against 64 humans. But now, truly, the end approached. Half of Elena's soldiers were dead or severely wounded. Ammunition for conventional weapons had dwindled to critical levels. The modified mining equipment that had proved so devastating in earlier engagements was failing from combat stress. Food and water supplies were running low. In the makeshift medical bay, Dr. Chen worked tirelessly to treat the wounded. Elena passed through, stopping to speak with each injured defender. Private Reynolds, barely 20 years old, caught her sleeve as she passed. "Did we hurt them, Major?" he asked through pain-clouded eyes. "Did we make them pay?" Elena squeezed his hand. "We made them pay for every meter, Reynolds. They'll remember humans." She continued to the command center, where Santos waited with the grim situational report. "Sargath forces have breached all outer defensive perimeters," he reported. "They've adapted their tactics again, using sacrificial units to trigger our traps, then exploiting the revealed pathways." Chief Vasquez, his face blackened with explosive residue, nodded in confirmation. "They're learning our methods. The next push will reach the central core." Elena studied the facility schematic. They had been driven back to their final defensive position, the central geothermal processing facility that formed the colony's heart. Massive pipes channeled the planet's internal heat into energy converters. Superheated steam under tremendous pressure flowed through conduits throughout the structure. "Science Overseer Kazar is monitoring the battle," Santos added. "Intercepted transmissions indicate they're studying our tactics in real time." Elena's eyes fixed on the geothermal converters. "Then it's time for Protocol Thermopylae." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. "Are you certain, Major?" Santos asked quietly. Elena nodded. "Begin evacuation of all wounded to the emergency shelters in Sub-Level 4. Give Dr. Chen whatever assistance she needs. Then initiate the protocol." Vasquez moved to a sealed weapons locker they'd prepared days earlier. Inside lay a collection of jury-rigged control systems and industrial tools. "We'll need 30 minutes to reconfigure the pressure valves," he said. "You have 20, Elena replied. "Santos, gather everyone who can still fight. We need to buy the engineers time." As the mining engineers worked frantically to modify the geothermal systems, Elena assembled her remaining combat-capable personnel. 16 soldiers, 27 miners, all exhausted, injured, running on stims and determination. "This is our final stand," she told them simply. "When the XR-Gath breached the central perimeter, we need to hold them in the main corridors for 20 minutes. After that..." She didn't need to finish the thought. They all understood. Private Kowalski, a former ore hauler turned demolitions expert, checked his makeshift weapons. "We'll hold them, Major. For 20 minutes or forever, whichever comes first." They took positions at the choke points leading to the central core. The distant sounds of XR-Gath advance teams grew louder as they fought through the final layers of traps and barricades. Aboard the flagship, Science Overseer Huzar watched the feed with growing unease. Something about the humans' tactical withdrawal pattern troubled him. Each step of their retreat had been too methodical, too measured, as if they're drawing our forces into a trap, he realized suddenly. Commander, we must withdraw the assault teams immediately. Lord Commander Vexnar's compound eyes swiveled toward him. Impossible. We have them cornered. Their defeat is mathematical certainty. That's what concerns me, Tidzar insisted. These humans don't surrender when defeat is certain. They become more dangerous. Before Vexnar could respond, the assault team breached the final defensive perimeter. Strategy Master Yurivax led thousands of warriors into the central facility corridors, where the remaining humans mounted a desperate defense. The battle was brutal, primal. Humans no longer fought with tactics but with pure animal fury. They abandoned cover, abandoned self-preservation, concerned only with holding the XR-Gath in place. Forward, Yurivax commanded. The resistance is breaking. In the engineering core, Vaskit has completed the final modifications to the geothermal system. Ready, Major, he reported over the tactical net. Alina, bleeding from a shrapnel wound to her shoulder, acknowledged. All units, fall back to emergency positions. Execute Thermopila. Vask has entered the activation sequence. Throughout the facility, pressure valves reversed. Safety systems disengage. The massive power of Proxima B9's geothermal energy was redirected into the corridors where thousands of XR-Gath warriors had been deliberately channeled. Superheated steam at devastating pressure exploded through tactical breaches in the conduit system. The temperature in the invasion corridors spiked to over 200 degrees Celsius in seconds. The XR-Gath, their exoskeletons evolved for combat, not heat resistance, died by the thousands. Their kitten literally cooked within their armor. The screams of dying warriors echoed through the facility as Strategy Master Yurivax watched his forces literally boil alive. In the confusion, Alina led a counterattack with her remaining able-bodied personnel. They struck at the surviving XR-Gath with desperate fury, exploiting the panic that had overtaken the invaders. Aboard the flagship, Lord Commander Vexnar watched in disbelief as casualty reports flooded in. 3,000 warriors dead in less than 5 minutes. The unthinkable had happened. Mass panic among the XR-Gath forces. For the first time in their long history of galactic conquest, a XR-Gath assault force was in full, disorganized retreat. Impossible, Vexnar whispered. Mathematically impossible. But mathematics had never accounted for the human will in combat. The encrypted transmission packet from Proxima B9 traveled 3 days at light speed before reaching the Earth Defense Force monitoring station at Alpha Centauri. The communications officer on duty nearly missed it, a faint signal barely distinguishable from background radiation. But pattern recognition software flagged the distinctive pulse sequence of an EDF emergency beacon. Admiral Helena Jean was awakened at 300 hours when the decryption was complete. She stood before the holographic display in the command center, face grim as the fragmented transmission played. XR-Gath Imperium, Neural Disruption Technology. 74 conquered species, mining colony under siege. Refusing surrender. Major Elena Kovacs commanding. Requesting immediate. The message deteriorated into static. Zhang turned to her intelligence officer. Analysis. The message originated from Proxima B9 11 days ago, Admiral. We've had no contact with that mining colony since. Based on the fragmented data, they appear to be under attack by an unknown alien force. Zhang's eyes narrowed. Not unknown. XR-Gath. Pull all intelligence on that designation. The results were sparse but alarming. Scattered reports from the fringes of human space over the past year. Colonies going silent. Rumors of an expanding empire that conquered through some form of neural technology. And this Major Kovacs, the one who refused surrender. Elena Kovacs, decorated EDF officer, combat veteran of the Epsilon Indi dispute, assigned to Proxima B9 as garrison commander, considered a quiet posting for an officer with her record. Zhang smiled thinly. Not quiet anymore. Prepare a battle group. I want every available ship moving toward Proxima Centauri within 6 hours. As the order went out, humanity's military apparatus, dormant since the last border skirmish years earlier, awakened with cold precision. Within 24 hours, intelligence officers had compiled comprehensive assessments of the XR-Gath threat based on Kovac's fragmented transmission. Tactical specialists analyzed her defense of the mining colony, distributing her innovative adaptations to other human outposts. Zhang addressed the assembled fleet commanders via holographic conference. We face an adversary that has conquered 74 species through neural subjugation technology. Major Kovac's data indicates humans possess partial resistance to this technology. We will exploit this advantage while developing countermeasures. A tactical officer highlighted the mining colony's defensive innovations. Major Kovac's converted industrial equipment into asymmetric weapons, targeting specific XR-Gath biological vulnerabilities. We're implementing similar adaptations across all frontier units. The neural resistance is key, added Dr. Eliza Moeller, the fleet's chief xenobiologist. If humans can maintain combat effectiveness under conditions that paralyze other species, we possess a critical strategic advantage. Admiral Zhang nodded. Deploy with maximum caution. The Proxima colony may already be lost, but we'll extract whatever survivors remain and compile all possible intelligence on this enemy. As the Earth Defense Force mobilized, news of the alien threat spread through human space. The response was not panic but cold determination. Frontier colonies began implementing defensive measures based on Kovac's tactics. Civilian mining operations converted industrial equipment into weapons. Within a week, humanity had transformed from a peaceful civilization into a species preparing for existential war. Aboard the XR-Gath flagship, the Imperium Overlord's representative had arrived. The massive being dwarfed even Lord Commander Vexnar, its ancient exoskeleton bearing the ritual scarification of 1,000 conquered worlds. Explain this catastrophe, the Overlord demanded, mandibles clicking in controlled fury. Vexnar prostrated himself. 9,000 warriors lost to a mining colony. The humans possess partial immunity to our neural technology and display combat psychology unlike any species we have encountered. Science Overseer Kuzar presented his analysis. The humans grow stronger under adversity rather than weaker. Their neural patterns actually become more focused when defeat seems certain. They have converted an industrial facility into a fortress that has inflicted unprecedented casualties. The Overlord's compound eyes shifted to the tactical display showing the ruined mining facility. You propose withdrawal from a primitive outpost. The Imperium has never retreated. Not withdrawal, Tezar clarified. Strategic reassessment. The human's resistance has activated some form of alert system. Our long-range sensors detect multiple vessels approaching at high velocity, a military response we did not anticipate. Strategy Master Urivax, his exoskeleton still bearing thermal damage from the human's counterattack, gestured to the intelligence projections. The human military technology appears less advanced than ours, but their tactics, their adaptability. I recommend caution. The Overlord's antennae twitched with rage and disbelief. The Imperium conquers. We do not show caution to primitives. With respect, Tezar countered. Our entire conquest model is predicated on neural compliance. If the human resistance to our subjugation technology is widespread, we face a variable our strategic algorithms cannot process. This species doesn't just resist our neural disruptors. They seem uniquely evolved to grow stronger under their influence. The debate continued for hours as human reinforcements drew closer. The Imperium's 40 millennia of uninterrupted conquest had never prepared them for a species that refused surrender even when defeat was mathematically certain. Finally, the Overlord made an unprecedented decision. Hold position. Do not engage the approaching human fleet. We will observe their capabilities before committing further resources." The assembled Sargath leaders clicked in shocked agreement. Never in their history had the Imperium hesitated in a conquest. "And the mining colony?" Lord Commander Vexnar inquired. "Maintain the siege," the Overlord commanded. "No more assaults until we understand this anomaly." As human warships entered the Proxima Centauri system, they encountered something unprecedented. A vastly superior alien force holding position rather than attacking. The Sargath Imperium, which had conquered 74 species through overwhelming force and biological inevitability, found itself confronting a species whose very psychology defied their fundamental understanding of warfare. Admiral Zhang studied the tactical display, showing the massive Sargath vessels in high orbit around Proxima B9. "They're observing us," she noted. "Learning." Her executive officer nodded. "We're doing the same." Zhang's eyes fixed on the planetary surface, where the mining colony's faint energy signature still registered. "Deploy the rescue teams. Let's find out what Major Kovacs and her people have been teaching our new friends." As human dropships descended toward the ravaged mining facility, both sides in this first contact scenario processed a revolutionary concept. The Sargath had encountered a species that didn't submit to inevitable defeat, and humanity had met an enemy that hesitated at the sight of determined resistance. The wider war had begun, but not as either side had anticipated. The Earth Defense Force dropships landed amid the ruins of Proxima B9's outer facilities. Admiral Zhang led the first team personally, pulse rifle ready as they advanced through corridors still bearing the scorch marks of battle. The remains of Sargath warriors littered the facility, thousands of them, their exoskeletons shattered by sonic weapons or cooked by superheated steam. "Life signs detected," reported the team's scanner operator. "Central processing facility. 16 human signatures." Zhang quickened her pace, moving through defensive positions of incredible ingenuity. Industrial equipment converted to weapons. Mining tools repurposed as traps. The story of an impossible defense written in blood and scorch marks on every wall. The rescue team reached a heavily fortified doorway. Behind it, sensors indicated the surviving humans were maintaining defensive positions. "EDF rescue team," Zhang announced over the comm system. "We're here to extract survivors." For long moments, silence answered. Then a voice, hoarse from smoke and exhaustion. "Authenticate identity. Security Protocol Echo 79er." Zhang recited the authentication code. The massive doorway slowly unsealed, revealing the central command bunker. Inside, 16 figures in scorched military uniforms and mining gear stood in defensive formation. Though wounded, starving, and exhausted beyond measure, every survivor held a weapon ready. Their eyes reflected not defeat but unwavering vigilance. At their center stood a woman Zhang recognized from personnel files. Major Elena Kovacs. Her uniform hung in tatters on her gaunt frame. A makeshift bandage covered her left shoulder, stained with blood both old and fresh. Her face bore the hollow-eyed look of someone who had pushed far beyond human limits. Yet she stood straight, sidearm held with rock-steady hands. "Major Kovacs," Zhang said, lowering her weapon. "Admiral Helena Zhang, Earth Defense Force." Slowly, Elena lowered her weapon. The other survivors followed suit, though none fully relaxed their vigilance. "Admiral," Elena acknowledged, her voice a damaged whisper. "Welcome to Proxima B9. How?" Zhang surveyed the command bunker with its displays showing thousands of confirmed Sargath casualties. "How did you hold out against such odds?" Elena's cracked lips formed a ghost of a smile. Surrender was never an option. The survivors were evacuated to the EDF flagship. Medical teams worked frantically to treat 3 weeks of accumulated injuries, malnutrition, and combat stimulant withdrawal. In the officers' wardroom, Elena, cleaned, treated, but still hollow-eyed, briefed Admiral Zhang and her staff on the Sargath threat. "Their entire conquest model is built on neural subjugation and quick victory," she explained. When we refused both, their doctrine collapsed. They have no strategic framework for an enemy that grows stronger under pressure. Zhang studied the tactical data. 9,000 warriors lost to 32 soldiers and 140 miners. The most lopsided victory in military history. Not a victory. Alina corrected her. A delay. The Xar-Gath Imperium has conquered 74 species across 3 spiral arms. We just happen to be the first to say no. Their fleet is holding position, Zhang noted. No aggressive movements since our arrival. Almost as if. They're studying us. Alina finished. Learning. Adapting. That's what makes them dangerous. They evolve their approach with each engagement. Intelligence officers continued analyzing the Xar-Gath fleet's communications. The picture that emerged transformed humanity's understanding of their situation. They've designated us an Omega-level threat species, reported the chief intelligence officer. The highest threat classification in their taxonomy. They're completely recalibrating their approach to us. Zhang turned to Alina. Your stand didn't just save this colony. It fundamentally altered the Xar-Gath perception of humanity. 3 days later, the unprecedented occurred. The Xar-Gath Imperium, which had never negotiated with a species it had targeted for conquest, opened diplomatic channels. The message was simple. The Imperium wished to discuss terms. Not surrender terms, alliance terms. Zhang convened her senior staff to debate the response. Some advocated immediate military action, while the Xar-Gath appeared uncertain. Others favored diplomatic engagement from a position of apparent strength. Alina, still recovering but insisted upon as an advisor, offered her perspective. The Xar-Gath conquered through biological inevitability and psychological certainty. We shattered both assumptions. They now face a species they cannot simply subjugate or predict, one that becomes more dangerous when threatened. For the first time in their history, they're calculating that conquest may cost more than cooperation. The human negotiating team arrived at the designated neutral location aboard the EDF flagship. Alina insisted on attending despite medical objections. They need to see the face of human resistance, she argued. The Xar-Gath delegation was led by the massive Imperium Overlord, flanked by Science Overseer Tzar and Strategy Master Urivax. Their compound eyes fixed immediately on Alina, recognition evident in their antennae movements. Admiral Zhang opened the negotiations with a simple statement. The Xar-Gath Imperium must respect the species that refuses surrender. Tzar translated for the Overlord, who responded with deliberate clicks that the translation software rendered as, "We acknowledge the unique nature of humanity." 74 species submitted to neural compliance. Only humans transformed defeat into strength. The negotiations continued for days. The terms that emerged reshaped interstellar relations across a dozen systems. The Xar-Gath would withdraw from human-claimed systems. A demilitarized zone would be established. Technology exchange would occur under strict protocols. When the Overlord signed the final agreement, it addressed a question directly to Alina. How did your species evolve this trait? This refusal to submit even when mathematics indicates defeat is certain. Alina considered the question. It's not unique to me or my soldiers. It's in our history, our literature, our very DNA. Humans have never accepted the inevitability of defeat. We always believe another option exists, even when none does. Tzar inquired. Especially then, Alina replied. That's when we're most dangerous. Not because we cannot be defeated, but because even in defeat, we refuse surrender. The Overlord's antennae twitched in what the xenobiologists suggested was profound discomfort. The Imperium has existed for 40,000 years. We have never encountered a species like yours. Get used to it, Alina said simply. As the Xar-Gath delegation departed, Admiral Zhang reviewed the formal treaty. This is unprecedented in their history, a negotiated settlement rather than conquest. Alina watched the Xar-Gath ships through the viewport as they prepared to withdraw from the Proxima Centauri system. They'll be back someday, In some form, predators adapt, but never change their nature entirely. And we'll be ready, Jean replied. Helena nodded, still bearing the hollow-eyed look of someone who had witnessed too much death. Yes, because that's what humans do. We prepare. We adapt. We fight on when mathematics says we should submit. In the years that followed, the Battle of Proxima B9 became required study at every military academy. The mining colony was rebuilt with a monument at its center listing the names of the fallen. Major Elena Kovacs received the highest military honors, though she declined a promotion to continue serving on the frontier. Science Overseer Kazar, in his final report to the Imperium before his retirement, included a warning that was archived in the deepest vaults of XR-Gath Strategic Command. The galaxy must respect the species that refuses surrender. Humanity's defeat is never final, only postponed. To challenge them is to transform them into something stronger, something more dangerous. The cost of their conquest will always exceed the value of their submission. In the officers' mess aboard an EDF patrol vessel near the border of XR-Gath space, young officers sometimes caught glimpses of a scared woman with hollow eyes who had once stood with 32 soldiers and 140 miners against an alien empire. When asked how they had held out against impossible odds, her answer never varied. Surrender was never an option.